Neon signs blazed, painting the city in vibrant hues. Towering skyscrapers pierced the smog-choked sky. This was Neo-Tokyo in the year 2147, a metropolis teeming with life and riddled with stark inequalities. The most coveted technology, chronotech, allowed manipulation of time itself, but it was a luxury hoarded by the privileged elite, further widening the gap between the haves and have-nots. Ryo Kisaragi, a spirited 17-year-old orphan scraping by in the lower levels of the city, knew this all too well. He yearned for a life beyond the drudgery of his existence. Little did he know, fate had something extraordinary in store for him.
One evening, fiddling with a discarded chrono bracelet I'd salvaged, I felt a jolt surge through me. The world around me dissolved into a dizzying kaleidoscope of colors, the familiar cityscape blurring and reforming. Time itself seemed to warp and twist around me.
Ryo had stumbled upon something far bigger than himself, a power he could barely comprehend. His life was about to change forever. Ryo gasped as he snapped back to reality, his head spinning. The once familiar alleyway now seemed alien, the graffiti-covered walls shifting before his eyes. His heart pounded against his ribs. What had just happened?
I glanced at the discarded chrono bracelet, its cracked screen flickering erratically. Each flicker seemed to coincide with a ripple in my vision, a distortion of time itself. I was somehow controlling it, but how?
Suddenly, the sharp wail of sirens pierced the air. Two figures in sleek black uniforms materialized from the shadows, their faces obscured by visors. Chrono Enforcers. Ryo's blood ran cold. They were the ruthless guardians of chronotech, notorious for their brutal efficiency in upholding the Time Council's monopoly. They had come for him.
Halt. You are in possession of illegal chronotech. Surrender yourself and you will be dealt with leniently.
Leniently? Ryo knew better than to believe their lies. He'd heard whispers of what happened to those who crossed the Time Council. They were never seen again.
Adrenaline surged through my veins. I had to escape.
As the Enforcers advanced, their chrono bracelets humming with energy, Ryo reacted instinctively. He focused on the flickering sensations within him, the strange pull of temporal energy. The world dissolved once more into a blur. When his vision cleared, he found himself perched precariously on a fire escape high above the alleyway. The Enforcers stood below, their faces contorted in a mixture of shock and anger. He had somehow teleported, manipulating time to escape their grasp. He was no ordinary boy, he was a Chrono Vanguard.
My name is Mira, and I believe you, Ryo Kisaragi. You are a Chrono Vanguard, just like me. We are bound by the same fate, navigating the currents of time and space. Ryo stammered, his words tumbling over each other in his haste. He recounted his encounter with the Chrono Enforcers, the strange temporal distortions, the impossible escape. His voice wavered as he described the fear that gripped him, the uncertainty of his own survival. The woman listened patiently, her gaze never leaving his. Her eyes seemed to pierce through the chaos of his words, finding the truth within. I think I've done something impossible, something that defies the very laws of time. Ryo looked up to see a young woman with piercing blue eyes and short, choppy hair, studying him intently. Her presence was both calming and commanding. She exuded an aura of quiet strength that put him at ease. It was as if she had seen countless battles and emerged stronger each time. You look like you've seen a ghost. Her words were gentle, yet they carried the weight of someone who understood his plight. The pulsating city lights blurred into streaks of color as Ryo navigated the neon-drenched labyrinth of the lower levels, his breath catching in his throat. The city was alive, yet it felt like a maze designed to trap him. He had evaded the Chrono Enforcers for now, but he knew they wouldn't rest until they caught him. Their relentless pursuit was a constant shadow over his every move. He needed help, someone to explain what was happening to him. The confusion and fear were overwhelming, and he felt like he was drowning in a sea of uncertainty. Exhausted and disoriented, he ducked into a dimly lit ramen shop, the familiar aroma of broth and noodles offering a semblance of comfort. It was a small sanctuary in the chaos, a place where he could catch his breath and gather his thoughts.
I listened with rapt attention as Mira explained the truth about my heritage, a truth that had been hidden from me my entire life.
The Chrono Vanguard, Ryo, are a lineage of individuals born with the natural ability to manipulate time, a gift passed down through generations. We were guardians of time, protectors of the temporal balance. But our existence was deemed a threat by the Time Council, the very organization that now holds a monopoly over chronotech. The Time Council stole chronotech from us. They perverted its true purpose, using it for their own selfish gains. They hunted down the Chrono Vanguard, branding us as criminals, erasing us from history.
Ryo struggled to grasp the magnitude of her words. He was a part of something ancient and powerful, a lineage hunted to near extinction by the very people who now controlled time itself. A sense of responsibility, of destiny, ignited within him.
I would not let my legacy be forgotten. I would fight back.
The weight of Mira's revelations settled heavily on Ryo's shoulders. The chronotech that the Time Council so ruthlessly hoarded was rightfully his people's legacy, a legacy stolen and twisted for their own corrupt purposes.
They took everything from us?
He learned of the Time Disruptor, a weapon of unimaginable power that could shatter the temporal fabric itself. The Time Council, under the iron fist of Commander Vex, sought to weaponize it, to consolidate their control over time and reshape history according to their whims. Fury coursed through Ryo's veins. It was not just about reclaiming their stolen heritage, it was about protecting the sanctity of time itself. The Time Council's reckless ambition threatened to unravel the very fabric of reality.
Vex controls the flow of time with the Disruptor. He can rewind, fast-forward, even trap people in temporal loops. He's the most dangerous man alive.
Ryo knew what he had to do. He had to stop Vex, even if it meant facing the full might of the Time Council. The air crackled with anticipation as Ryo and Mira infiltrated the Time Council headquarters, a towering monolith of steel and glass that seemed to mock the heavens. The building loomed over the city, its presence a constant reminder of the power it held within its walls. They moved like phantoms through the sterile corridors, their steps muffled by the rhythmic hum of chronotech. Every corner they turned brought them closer to their goal, their hearts pounding in unison with the building's mechanical pulse. They had trained relentlessly, honing their abilities, preparing for this moment. Every drill, every simulation had led them to this point, and they were ready to face whatever lay ahead. Ryo's control over time had grown exponentially, his every move a testament to his newfound power. He could now manipulate the very fabric of reality, bending it to his will with a mere thought. He could feel the temporal currents swirling around him, bending to his will. The energy crackled at his fingertips, a tangible force that he could command with precision.
This is it, Mira. We can't turn back now. We've come too far, and the fate of time itself rests on our shoulders.
They finally reached Vex's chamber, a cavernous space at the heart of the building. The Time Disruptor, a menacing orb of swirling energy, pulsed ominously in the center of the room. Its glow cast eerie shadows on the walls, adding to the tension in the air. And there he was, Commander Vex, his towering figure clad in black armor, his face hidden behind a featureless helmet. His presence was as imposing as the building itself, a dark sentinel guarding the flow of time.
So the Chrono Vanguard spawn dares to show its face. Your kind should have been extinguished long ago. You are nothing but a blip in the grand tapestry of time.
The time for words was over. The battle for time itself was about to begin. The fate of the universe hung in the balance, and there was no room for error. The air crackled with temporal energy as Ryo and Vex clashed, their powers colliding in a dazzling display of chronokinetic prowess. The chamber pulsed and warped around them, time itself becoming a weapon in their hands. Vex, wielding the Time Disruptor, unleashed temporal anomalies, slowing time around Ryo, trapping him in agonizing loops of repeated moments.
I won't let you win, Vex.
But Ryo fought back with the raw, untamed power that flowed through his veins. He manipulated the temporal distortions, turning them against Vex, reversing the flow of time, creating pockets of accelerated time to disorient his opponent. Mira, a whirlwind of motion, used her own chronokinetic abilities to outmaneuver the Chrono Enforcers guarding Vex, their movements a blur as she danced through their ranks.
Keep going, Ryo. We can do this.
The fate of time itself hung in the balance. The chamber pulsed and throbbed, the air thick with the stench of ozone, as Ryo gathered his remaining strength for a final desperate gambit. The machinery around him hummed with an almost sentient energy, as if aware of the monumental task at hand. He could feel the strain on his abilities, the limits of his control. Every muscle in his body screamed in protest, but he pushed on, driven by a purpose greater than himself. But he had to stop Vex, no matter the cost. The fate of countless timelines rested on his shoulders, and failure was not an option. Focusing his will, Ryo channeled the temporal energies swirling around him, converging them onto the Time Disruptor. The air crackled with raw power, the very fabric of reality bending to his will. He envisioned time reversing upon itself, the flow of energy inverting, collapsing inward. It was a delicate balance, a dance on the edge of chaos. a blinding flash of light erupted, engulfing the chamber in a wave of temporal energy. The intensity was overwhelming, a crescendo of light and sound. The disruptor, overwhelmed by the reversed flow of time, imploded, taking Vex and his Chrono Enforcers with it. The implosion was both a victory and a cataclysm, reshaping the battlefield in an instant. The shockwave ripped through the chamber, tossing Ryo and Mira aside like ragdolls. The force was immense, a testament to the power they had unleashed.
Mira, are you okay? His voice was strained, filled with concern for his comrade.
As the dust settled and the echoes of the temporal storm subsided, Ryo and Mira picked themselves up, their bodies battered, but their spirits unbroken. They exchanged a glance, a silent acknowledgement of their shared ordeal. They had won this battle, but the war for time was far from over. The battlefield was a stark reminder of the challenges that lay ahead. The Time Council might have been crippled, but their insidious influence still lingered in the shadows. Their reach was long, and their ambitions even longer. As long as chronotech remained in their grasp, the true potential of time would remain enslaved. The technology was a double-edged sword, capable of both great good and unimaginable evil.
This is just the beginning, Ryo. We have a long fight ahead of us. The Time Council may have fallen, but their reign has left scars across time itself. The path to true freedom would be fraught with peril. We must ensure that no one ever wields such power so recklessly again. The future of countless worlds depended on their vigilance.
Ryo nodded, his jaw set with determination. He was ready. He was a Chrono Vanguard, and he would fight for the freedom of time itself. The journey ahead was uncertain, but his resolve was unwavering.